fellow parents and guardians, and welcome back to another Discipleship Debrief. This past Sunday, CBC Youth continued our series in Ecclesiastes, wrapping up chapter 7, and really looking at what I simply titled Two Warnings from the Preacher, because they really aren't super related to one another, but they're just two things that the preacher takes time to warn us about because they will stifle our happiness. They will kill our happiness. If the preacher tells us to do something, it means it'll make us happy. If the preacher tells us not to do something, it means it won't make us happy. And if the preacher warns us about something, it means that that thing will actively make us unhappy. And so the two things that he warns us about in this section are other people's words and our own sin, right? The external things that can come in and hurt us, and then the internal things that hurt us and prevent our happiness. And so talking about other people's words, we looked at the scriptural basis for why we are never to give other people's words undue credibility, right? Or too much credibility or too much respect. And the first of that being found in James, that other people are careless with their words. We are careless with our words. The preacher even acknowledges, he says, "Don't take everything to heart lest your servant curse you, for you yourself know that you have cursed others at times." And so the preacher is actively saying, don't take every insult to heart because you give insults and you know that you are careless when you speak sometimes. And so we don't take other people's words to heart because we know we are careless sometimes. The other reason scripturally being that other people are wrong. Jesus in Luke 6 says, "Woe to you when everyone speaks well of you, because they spoke well of the false prophets." And so if our entire identity is built on other people's words, we need to remember Jesus's words that we don't even want to be well-liked by everybody. We don't want to be having our praises sung by everyone because people are wrong, right? If you look at our culture, how often are faithful Christians actually celebrated by people? It's pretty rare, and it tends to be, if they're being celebrated, they're not being celebrated for their Christianity. And so we don't want to build our lives on other people's words because other people are wrong. Other people choose the wrong people to praise. And the last reason being, of course, that we need to be more focused on pleasing God than on pleasing man. Right? If we are making other people's words central to our being, then we are not having God at the center of our being, and that is bad. And so those are the three reasons that we cannot give other people's words too much credibility in our lives. And if we don't heed those reasons, other people's words will steal our happiness. It'll stifle our happiness. And the other topic that the preacher talks about, our own sin hurting us. A preacher transitions between these two warnings by saying that he took time to consider the foolishness that is wickedness and the madness that is folly. And the preacher then talks about his own sin, as the preacher is Solomon, and the preacher talks about his own sin of many wives, of falling prey to women who are unwise. And he talks about that in this very sad, poignant way. And then he concludes with the phrase that, "This I found out, that man was made upright." And so it's almost like the preacher is looking and he's saying, this is what happened to me. And his conclusion from that is, it was not meant to be this way, right? Man was made upright. We were not meant to be these fallen creatures that we are. And so we talked about the fact that our own sin keeps us in a state of misery. There's no other way about it. Our own sin keeps us in a state of misery. Our own sin tells us that we will be better off with it, and then we just walk into just pain and anguish, right? And so we need to understand that sinning doesn't make us happy. Sinning actually kills our happiness, right? The preacher found this out through his foolish arrays with many wives. We find it out with our foolishness as well. And we need to understand that the best way to be happy in life is to cut off the sin that keeps us far from God, because our happiness rests with God. So this week, as you follow up in the home as parents, I really want to hone in on that first concept of other people's words, because this is the first time in the series that this has come up. And we live in a generation where other people's words are all around us all the time. And all of the students being middle school and high school, they're especially exposed to it, and especially this generation with social media as well. So there's so many factors making it that other people's words are constantly around them. They are constantly at risk of giving too much credibility to what other people say about them. So this week, considering that, follow up by asking your student, what lies said about you have you believed? Right? What things said about you, what insults tossed at you, whatever it may be, have you taken to the very core of your being? And then you can walk through with your student why those things aren't true, why they don't need to make that central to who they are. And they can go through and they could process through that and they can expel those other people's words from their hearts. And we can take serious the warning of the preacher that these things will prevent us from being happy. So that is what I have for you this week. If you have any questions or thoughts on follow-up, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, see you next time.